Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Barenaked Health Podcast. And looking back, it's been a few years, but back on the show today is Steve Macari. Steve, welcome back.
Hey Nick, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Steve, just kind of getting ready for the show, right? We had recorded two previous episodes, like I forget it was 7 and 9 years ago, or 8 and 10 years ago, or
I
so.
think 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. So,
2015.
well, we did that one, and then I think we did one like 2 years later, right?
Did we? Okay.
But one of the funny parts, like as I asked you, like one of the last questions is like, all right, like where do you see the future of health? Like 10 years from now, like where is stuff going? Guess what you said?
I have no idea.
I mean, all of the stuff that you're talking about now, it was wild. Like the stuff that you're talking about, you were talking about putting stuff on airplane mode. You were talking about getting out, like getting the sunshine, getting in nature, whether you're in a city, whether you're not. It's like
Oh yeah.
the foreshadowing on it was absolutely incredible. So maybe if you want to catch the listeners up a little bit, if they haven't been following your work as much, I mean, sharing Heal Without, just kind of anything, everything maybe you've been up to over the last 8 or 10 years.
Wow. Well, when we last spoke, I was working mainly as a nutritionist and holistic lifestyle coach, and I was pretty big into the functional blood chemistry analysis and kind of incorporating that component with my clients. And obviously doing some of the holistic lifestyle coaching. And I was aware of the energetic component of health and the spiritual layers. But I don't think I fully realized the significance of kind of the energetic component at that time, and also, I guess what I'll refer to as the psychospiritual component, which is pretty mainstream right now. All this inner work people are doing, shadow work, inner child work, healing trauma, all this stuff, kind of I would bundle into that. And so, yeah, I mean, my journey since we last spoke is probably, healing a lot of my own issues in that area, having a daughter, which, my daughter was born in 2017. And I kind of remember saying something to you on our call. I don't think I had my
No,
daughter born yet.
I want to say it was going to be right around the time that we talked. Yeah.
Like it's possible my wife was pregnant. And I kind of remember having this idea of, if I was going to be really tired when my daughter was first born, just like waking up in the middle of the night when she was up and just meditating with her. That wasn't the case. You're just exhausted all the time. I totally remember that when she was where I'm like, I told Nick that I was going to be like really spiritual and be meditating when my daughter was up. No, I just wanted to go back to sleep.
But awareness of that can be a meditation in of
Yeah,
itself, I guess,
exactly.
right?
But so, yeah, it's been kind of a real journey. I mean, with so much
Right.
happening in the world, I
Maybe
would,
what was that switching point, tipping point, if you will, that was there any one thing or like a series of things that kind of built up to obviously I doubt nutrition is you've thrown that out the window, but it's what has kind of what was that maybe like tipping point of kind of pushing you into that psycho-spiritual aspect.
well, I started to see when I was working with nutritional clients, that people were just not making. I'd say, hey, okay, you have some gut issues, so you need to stop eating gluten. You need to stop eating certain foods which are irritating your gut, or inflaming your gut. And they just wouldn't do it. And so I was seeing these self-sabotaging behaviors occur. And I'm like, all right, why are people, something's clearly bad for them. They hired me as a nutritionist. Why aren't they listening? And so you start to realize that this is, much deeper wounds that are coming up, and people, don't want to actually nourish themselves for whatever reason. You know what I mean? So it started in that work, and the work became kind of frustrating because I knew it was more than nutrition, but not everybody was prepared to go down that road. And I hadn't even really started, I thought I was unraveling my own issues, reading all the new age books, and I was like, all right, there's something else going on here. But it wasn't until I kind of actually had a daughter that I started really starting to see where my beliefs about myself and where my beliefs about the world came from. And it was partially in part that I wanted to make sure she was not kind of being programmed in a negative way. So it forced me to really unpack a lot of my own issues, and I started to really go down that route. However, that route can be quite challenging if you don't have a way to kind of these energies come up, and they're coming up, they have to be processed through the body. So if you don't have a way to somatically process through the body, they're still going to get stuck. You're still going to run into issues. So, I've been doing Qigong since I started working with Paul and since I met you, but I might have let the practice go a little bit at some points in favor of kind of the more spiritual teachings and meditation and stuff like that. But my story actually, I realized that the psychospiritual work was a component, and but at the same time, doing all that work, I still wasn't doing all that work, eating properly, having a holistic lifestyle, having a rhythm and routine in my day. Still, there was still something that wasn't right. Like it came to a point where I didn't feel. It actually really came to a head about 5 years ago. I actually got really ill. I couldn't get out of bed. Something was really wrong with me. I didn't know what it was, and I think there were various layers to it, but really what hit me was that I need to learn how to manage these energies that are around me. I need to learn how to manage my own energy system, which I've since learned how to define, and I'll tell you in a minute. I needed how to learn how to manage these energies which are around me. And there's various types of energies which are around us, everything from elemental energies to um, other people's energies, ancestral energies, and nastier energies that you don't even want to think exist. So I've had to learn how to manage that as a sensitive person, an energetically sensitive person. And so that's when I really leaned more into the idea of energetic lifestyle changes, energetic hygiene. We all know holistic lifestyle changes, right? Which, there's so many changes we can make in our life, simple changes, but energetic hygiene is huge. And I learned kind of by necessity, by being brought to my knees, how to really take that very seriously and incorporate it into my, not just like daily, like my every minute of my life. There's things that I'm doing to kind of make sure that these energies are kind of harmonized. And so I mentioned that I can clearly define the energy system of a human, and this isn't like foolproof, but really, if you were to look at it, the first layer for me are really the meridians, which are most often referenced in traditional Chinese medicine, right? So we have 12 major meridians, another 8 meridians, so you could say there are 20 meridians. There's more than that, but let's say there's 20 meridians that you can actually work with and make sure that when those are balanced, the energy is going to be flowing properly. The second area would be the chakra system. I always say chakra, but I think you're supposed to say chakra. So the chakra system, and there's different numbers of chakras depending on who you talk to. But for me, I go through 9 major chakras, and then there's minor chakras as well, which I look at. If those are in harmony, those are balanced, you're going to feel pretty good. And the last layer really, and it's not the last, but it's the last that I'll kind of categorize, would be, the energy bodies, your auric field. And you have, you're like a Russian doll, a body within a body within a body within a body. So, if all these layers are harmonized and you bring some attention to them each day through certain mental practices, through certain more somatic and movement-based practices, through prayer, through other things, your energy system is going to be pretty good. Also, learning how to, kind of clear your energy and harmonize your energy system that way is something that just should be like brushing your teeth. And so you can do that with Qigong, you can do that with mudras, you can do that with other techniques as well. So when I put all that together, when I started addressing my energetic health, my life changed, it really did. So that's kind of been my main focus now, what I share on Instagram and social media. And when I work with people, the people that are coming to me are the ones who are getting beaten down energetically. They're doing all these health things that sound right, but they still don't feel right. And it's because they're not kind of checking this box. And it's a box anybody could check with a few simple tools. And so that's kind of been my mission lately, teaching people how to do that.
This was actually great because this was one of my questions for you, Steve. Like, how did you come down to meridians, chakras, and auric field? Because to me, I mean, if we looked probably across the globe, we could find 100 different varieties of this. Like, what was it about those three really that stood out for you? Yeah, I mean, maybe let's start there, please.
So, I mean, obviously, in being a Qigong practitioner and studying five element theory and traditional Chinese medicine, to some extent, I mean, this stuff goes really deep, you know what I mean? But I just think that the meridian system and five element theory is probably the most comprehensive system out there for healing. You know, it literally addresses every layer, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. You can use Qigong to do anything from general health to, enlightenment to, living, like if you want to live a really long time, you should study the Taoism and the Qigong related to that and all those practices. There's more Taoists living into like the hundreds than probably I would say any other like thing that I've heard of. So like it,
I just started reading the Dao De Jing a month and a half ago for like the very first time, and it is absolutely blowing my mind so far.
yeah, I mean the system is so profound, and so obviously I was like, and also the meridians are referenced not just they're most often linked to China and TCM, but I mean
All
all
of them.
all
Yeah.
the cultures, shamanic cultures in South America, they all have a meridian system. It's just
Yep.
it's slightly different,
Different names, yeah, but that's
but they
about it.
all recognize that there are these channels where energy flows. And the chakra system as well, and they might call it something slightly different in the Qigong world. Maybe you get a cauldron or a cavity or something like that. They might refer to it as, but the chakra system is throughout the world also. So, but most often linked to yogic practices and Hinduism. And then the auric field, the energy bodies too. I mean, again, these are kind of like three like generic, they're just seen across all the different cultures, as far back as time, these systems. And I also, in my mind, I was so confused about what energy was for a while. Like, like you learn about energy, right? Like, and some people just don't like to define it. And maybe this is kind of one of my, I don't know if it's a male trait or like whatever it is, but like I wanted it to, I was like, what does this mean? And eventually I just was like, all right, I have to define it. And so it's a loose definition, but it's a solid framework that I've been able to kind of like explain to people. And you can look at diagrams of most of this stuff too. You can see the meridians. You can see how it makes sense. It's not just like, oh, energy is over here. Here, you see the meridians, you see the chakra system. The energy body one's a little more, I haven't nailed that one down yet because there's so many different people who say there's different names for the energy bodies and different levels, but they're there. And if you want to pick a system and kind of just try and harmonize it, you can. So, yeah.
So then, do you have a? Those are all, I guess, components of energy. Like, do you have an actual definition that you use for energy? Like the word itself, actually.
I mean, in Qigong, I mean, Qi is known as a life force or energy. It's one of those things, like if you Google a definition for Qi, you literally can see definitions and explanations that are like pages long, which is like mind blowing. So, you translate, my favorite definition of Qigong is actually like the art of energy. So
Okay.
I love that, the art of energy. And chi, everybody knows chi or prana, or I think in Japan it's ki, ki. I don't know if I'm saying
Yeah.
that properly. But so it's an energy, it's some kind of universal life force. And then, um, it's kind of like it's everywhere. I almost kind of like in spirituality, people kind of talk about consciousness. I guess it's in some ways like, you know, it's some ways kind of like that. It's like it's here and there. It's like I don't know. You can't really talk about it really.
I mean, it's trying to describe the Tao. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna like try to say I have an explanation for it, but it's a and there's different kinds to if you want to refer to chi, and there's different types of chi, right? So there's all different types of chi. You could say you have heaven chi, earth chi, you have rebellious chi, you have wei chi, which is kind of like the protective chi that you can build up. So there's all different types of chi. Also, there's chi from your food, drink, chi from the air. So there's like all different kinds of chi, but like it's kind of like I don't know that that's like helpful to like kind of start really,
All right.
you
Because
know.
now I'm curious too. What's a good place to start with some of this? I mean, like obviously, like some of your research is like I see you're talking about some of it too, but it's like, where did you start? Like, what do you find most helpful? Like, I'm a book guy, but whatever it is that you kind of found to be the best things.
I think that most people need to learn a really simple Qigong practice. Really simple. And really what Qigong is not Tai Chi. Like I think most people are familiar with Tai Chi, which is actually it's actually a full martial arts form. What people tend to see where people are doing kind of like these slow flow. And I'm not a Tai Chi practitioner. So I'm just telling you based on my understanding of the definition. So the part that we see where people are doing kind of like the dancing, flowing movements is kind of the more it's not the fighting component of Tai Chi. So, but it's very powerful and very beautiful, and it's built on the idea of yin and yang and harmonizing those. Um, it's very hard to learn. You know, some of these Qigong or Tai Chi sets are like you're learning over 100 different moves, and then you have to link them together. So like it can take somebody years to learn that, and then like they just know the movements. They haven't embodied the essence of them and the forms and what they're doing. So like I think most people don't need a practice where they have to really like get in their mind and study and get really serious like that. Qigong is very different because you'll learn one movement. Your arms might be moving like this, and you just synchronize it with your breath, and you do it like an exercise might be done. You might do it like 5 times or 9 times or 10 times. And the movements, when you, I think most people would know that whenever you harmonize, synchronize breathing with a movement, it's going to do so many amazing things for the body, mind,
Well, the
spirit.
power of it goes exponentially. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs to relax. It's immediately going to regulate your nervous system, stimulate the parasympathetic system. And so it's something that everybody needs. And it's very easy to learn a simple movement. So, you know, what I do, I have people just do, are you going to share a video of this, Nick, or is it just audio?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be putting some of the, I'll put the video up on YouTube for
Yeah.
sure.
So like a simple thing that people can do is just kind of start with your hands, palms to the earth like this, and my fingers are pointing to each other. And this is called lift the sky. And normally you do it standing, but like you inhale as you go up, and then you exhale and come back down right to that same starting position. And you want to slow it down, obviously, as much as possible, inhaling up, exhaling all the way back to that starting position. And so like in doing that simple movement, if you did that movement 10 times, that movement right there works a lot with the heart and the fire element. So you're going to be stimulating all of these channels related to that with that simple movement. And most people can figure out how to do that and work with it. I mean, you'd be surprised. Some people have a really hard time just doing something simple like that. There's so much tension and they just can't relax and kind of soften everything. So, what I teach everybody is to get a simple Qigong practice. I show them a simple form like that and then another form as well. And if you spend 10 to 15 minutes a day doing these simple movements, you're kind of checking one box that will start to harmonize the meridians. You know, you can go to acupuncture too, although quite frankly, I don't think that. I think if you learn how to do Qigong, you don't really need an acupuncturist, quite frankly, unless you get into something serious. Because really what you're doing is working with the same channels. And some people would argue that you're actually working these meridians at an even deeper level than you would if you were just getting needles put in them. So I start with
I like
teaching.
the empowerment of it though, like not having to go see somebody for it. It's like, no, it's on you now. Like you've put this like in your court and you need to take responsibility for it. You are to an extent going to see somebody, but there's still something more in depth about it, I think, of like creating it for yourself.
Yeah, and you can just do it anytime, any place. You don't need anything special. You don't have to do it outside. You don't have to do it barefoot. Obviously, great if you can, but like you can just do it in the middle of your kitchen if you're feeling stressed out. Just do a few of one of these simple Qigong forms. And there are more technical Qigong forms that you can learn, but like most people don't need that. Most people are overloaded in their life anyway. They need a few simple things that they can do that don't take a lot of mental capacity, that just get them into their body and get them. I don't even really want them thinking about their breathing too much. I mean, maybe initially, all right, inhale, exhale. But when you get to the point where it's just flowing and you're not thinking about it, that's when the mind's going to shut off and you're really going to stimulate, have a really kind of stress reducing impact, which is a starting point for people. You can go and you can learn Qigong's form for specific imbalances, you know, if there's or specific, you know, change of seasons. If you have issues in certain areas, like I know what my weak points are, and through Qigong and other practices, I can kind of work with those, you know.
Now I'm curious. Weak points, though, too. When you say that, is that because of um, your lifestyle, or like just what's built up for you, or is that more of a depending on what is it, the element you are, or like what sign you are based on birth, or is it really a combination of all of those?
I think it's a combination of all those. I mean, it's always like, you know, obviously we want to have a life that's pretty balanced and rhythmic. And I think there are controllable stressors and uncontrollable stressors. You know what I mean? So there's times when I have to do things in my life that I know are not optimal for me, but I have to do them. So, and I'm usually strong enough these days where it's not going to like throw me off to do these things. But like I know if I feel something not right, I know how I can kind of try and find balance again through certain techniques. So part of it's that, part of it is constitutional, and that I kind of have a sense for my constitution. I have a sense for the times of year when I know that I have to kind of pay more attention to certain areas. I have a sense for what seasonal changes are going to be easier for me to adjust to and harder for me to adjust to. And so, people can, if from a TCM perspective, I know this because I'm like overly sensitive. I feel everything. I pay attention to everything, and it's actually kind of annoying, but it's, but at the same time, it's like the best biofeedback mechanism. I don't need to wear like a tracking device to tell me when something's off. Like I know if something's not right, and I know how to kind of, I don't always know, but usually I can bring myself back into balance with some of the techniques I've learned. So it's a constant learning curve, but yeah.
Now I'm curious because this is something that we had talked about before. I still take my morning pulse. Like I know you've in the past done stuff like that and or like body temperature. Do you still do that, or is it now more of a by feel type thing?
I don't do that anymore. I used to do that. I used to be really into tracking like the thyroid and stuff. And
Yeah,
I'm not really like, I think you're more of an athlete than me. Like you still train pretty hard probably.
I still train pretty hard. Yeah,
But like I don't really train in that way. Most of the physical exercise I get is from like, doing things around the house, like home projects,
sure.
landscaping stuff, just running around and playing with my daughter. But if I was going to do what you're doing, I probably would track that stuff more because I think it's obviously, you're more down that component, that layer than I am. But
Well, that being said, right, I still always take my resting morning heart rate. Like I
yeah.
have a clock that has a battery and it has like an amber backlit. So it's like I tap it right when I wake up so I don't move, right? Like I'm just taking my pulse. I take it on the right side every single time just because that's the way I'm facing. I know within 30 seconds am I on point for the day or not. Like, but then I'll still go more in depth with that. Like that's where I can always then go, okay, like get my soul connection. Like, should I train today? Should I go heavy? Should I like so on and so forth? But I think it's just one of those like I've been doing it for so many years and it's like it's just part of my practice. That's why I was curious like to see if you still did something like that or is it more no, you kind of tune into your body and just kind of know.
Well, yes, and I also use a pendulum for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you probably trained in one of those. I don't know if you're still using it or muscle testing. Some people like that. The
I
kines,
still just do like the asking my soul kind of
yes,
thing.
your soul, which is
It's all the same thing, right?
it's all the same, and that's the best. And I do that sometimes, but I have a pendulum that I use for a lot of personal items, for energy clearing, for working with clients. I have a kind of a menu that I go through to kind of try and assess where imbalances are. And so I use it quite a bit. Sometimes I don't like it. It's a crutch. You might think it's a crutch sometimes, and I will try and do the other ways like you're doing, just the internal compass, the internal guidance. But it's a nice tool that I like to have in my arsenal. But with Nick,
Go
with
ahead.
your pulse though, I mean, yeah, I mean, real Chinese medicine. I mean, it can take. They read the pulse, right? And
Right.
it takes, apparently that's one of the hardest techniques to learn if you're going to go that route, to learn how to read a pulse properly. Because it's not just like counting, it's like there's all sorts of other things they're getting into. But yeah, I think you encouraged me to maybe start taking my pulse in the morning. So I'll try
Well,
that.
but they'll do like the what is the light, medium, and deep, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
they do it like three fingers over here or something like that,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, it's crazy what they do. I mean, I don't know. Those guys are next level that have been they're masters in Chinese herbs and all that stuff.
You know, speaking of herbs, that was actually another thing that I had written down because I know one of the things I just like looking into the show again. You were on the I think it was Infinite Drop podcast a year and a half ago, and you were talking. She asked you like, yeah, what's something you don't talk about much anymore, and it's nutrition, right? But then as I'm thinking about that, I'm like, I'm curious on herbs because of all the TCM stuff that you're talking about. Like, where have you gone down that rabbit hole as far as herbs, etc.?
Not very far. I really, really want to learn more. Like it's so unbelievably powerful. Like actually, even with the nutritional side of TCM,
Sure.
just managing, all the different like dampness is such a huge issue where I live. I'm sure it is where you are too. It's like you want to stay the hell away from any food that is damp, you know what I mean? It's like, and you want to try and kind of figure out how to purge that. And so I run really hot too. So like I've been um experimenting with different things. Like apparently, like mung beans and black turtle beans, I think are a great way to kind of just pull that heat out of the body. And I was never a person who ate beans, so like there's crazy stuff that I don't know about. Like I've incorporated some things into my life, like chrysanthemum tea is huge for me. And this is actually a great book, which is a good reference for a lot of this stuff between heaven and earth. I don't know if you've seen this one.
No.
Um, it's written by two acupuncturists, so it really kind of gives you the whole food picture, which is quite complex to understand. But I've started to incorporate small pieces of that stuff into my routine. Not a lot. Like chrysanthemum tea is really great for a lot of different things. So I'll drink chrysanthemum tea certain times a year. I actually recently, I don't really eat a lot of corn, but there's some decent corn right now. And I was shucking corn and all the corn silk. Corn silk is a huge thing in Chinese medicine for various things. And so I actually took the corn silk and I made some tea out of it. And I drank this tea. It tastes very corny, but it really, in the way I felt after I drank it, it had a really positive response. I just felt really good just from a few sips of it. So this stuff is powerful, and if you really understood Chinese herbs, I can't even imagine what they could do for you. So maybe I'll go to school for that, or if I meet the right person, I'll learn about it. But I haven't gone down that route yet. And this is why I say the traditional Chinese medicine plus Qigong is the most complete system because you have the movement-based stuff, you have the elemental stuff, you have the herbs, you have the food. It's just like maybe there are other systems, but they're probably not mapped out and maybe they're kept in tightly knit circles. But like this is all out there. And if you can study it and learn it, I mean, you need to find a teacher that can help you put it all together, I think. But it's just such a powerful system.
I guess I'd be curious to know more about Ayurveda then too, because I imagine just based on the culture that it's obviously been around probably equally as long and is well studied. But exactly like you said, is it how well mapped out? Is it how, I guess, easy is it to learn? And ease of learning is an important factor, right? Because like, does it is it already too late for us to start learning? And I know it's not too late for us, but you know what I mean? It's like, should we have done this 30 years ago already?
I know. And it's the thing that I've found is that you don't need to go that deep into this stuff to benefit from it. Like, I think it's so powerful that like you just learn a few little things and it really can improve the quality of your life. I mean, there's just so many people that are really like going down. I think things are changing, but like, especially when I think we first met, this whole idea of like, um, nutrition and supplements and functional medicine and all that kind of stuff was getting really popular. And I even fell into this trap of like really like obviously getting people to eat right, but then throwing all these supplements at people, even though they were better quality supplements, it still wasn't generally making people feel better.
But
So it's like, but I think there is a way to supplement with things that can be beneficial. Granted, I still think it should be really specific to what you need and often micro dosed instead of these big doses. But yeah, there's something to it.
so obviously, like you think this is some of that missing component. Um, on an energetic level, do you have an idea of like what healing actually means? Like, what is that?
What healing is?
Yeah.
Well, most recently, so I think for a long time, myself, like, why did I want to heal? So like I first got into healing when I was around 30, when I felt terrible. I lost my job, had all these autoimmune issues, the thyroid stuff, the gut stuff, the toxicity. I was unraveling all that. And so at the time, healing to me meant just feeling like better, like normal, like able to function in my life. And then from there, once I figured all this stuff out, trained with Paul Chek, I had all this new information, right? I was so excited to share it. There was a period of time where to me, healing was like feeling really good all the time, like almost feeling superhuman, almost like the ego came into it, where like I wanted to be healthier than everybody. So for a while, it was that. And then to me, I got kind of lost in the healing of like the whole idea of healing being like being enlightened and the real spiritual side of healing where like nothing can bother you. Like you were in this state where you were just like almost like blissed out, like, all the time, right? Disconnected from the world, like in kind of other worlds. And obviously there's issues with that. So there's probably another point in there that I missed as well that I went down, path that I went down for healing. But right now for me, healing or the purpose of healing should be to get to a place where you have the power, the energy, the strength to fulfill all of the roles that you have to play in your life and to have enough energy and strength and power to fulfill your mission or the various missions that you have. So if you are at that level of vitality, I think you're healed and you're great. So, but it doesn't mean you're going to stay there all the time. There's obviously going to be points where things dip, but um, and so I think that's a good point. I think that's kind of like where I try and take people. That's where I try and stay myself. And whenever I start complaining about something, being ungrateful, I'm like, wait, um, how do I feel today? Like, well, I had something happen today that might be kind of like playing in my mind a little bit. Like, but like I feel great. I have all these amazing things. Like I'm great. So it's kind of like it's also like healing is also having an awareness of kind of where you're at because it's never done. For a point of time, I thought being healed, you're done. Like, oh, there's no more healing to do. These people are crazy too. So, and I've been this person on every level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like maybe there is a done point. Like maybe there is somebody who's fully enlightened. Like non-dual awareness. Like, but it's not most people. I don't think it's most people's path.
Yeah, but if we're going off the 8 billion people on Earth, how many are actually there, right?
Yeah, and
Maybe a handful,
And even
maybe.
those people, will admit they're not done. It's like they're going,
That's part of it, right? Like the people that are actually there will tell you that they're not there, right?
no, it's always evolving and always changing. So I think there's various places you can get caught along the way. But me, I just want to have energy, power, a level of awareness to kind of be a dad, to be able to share my videos, to be able to help share this healing knowledge that I have. And that's where it is for me today. It might change at some point in the future.
That basically, like, is that how you would sum up your mission right now?
That's my mission right now. I mean, I what I'm doing right now is what I never in a million years what I expected to be doing. I never expected to be on social media. It is a total shock to me. Like when we were talking, I was posting a couple things and then I didn't do anything for like 8 years. And I had this kind of big 40-year-old meltdown, breakdown, illness. Life brought me to my knees. I came out of it and my wife was seeing all these things that I was doing and she was like, "Hey, Steve, why don't you share some of these videos, this Qigong that you're doing and this other stuff on Instagram?" And I was like, "Oh, your wife's always right. They always know what you should be doing." I mean, I've learned time and time again.
Best teacher you have, yeah.
So this time I actually listened to her, and within like 3 to 6 months, I got, a lot of people were looking at my stuff and they were really interested when I was sharing. And it just went from there. And I really think honestly that part of this kind of illness that I went through at 40 was that I I stopped sharing healing information with the world. I was keeping things in. And I think there's probably nothing more destructive. And I think there's a quote by one of Carl Jung's disciples, I think Marie Louise von Franz. She has a quote somewhere which I've always loved. And I'm just going to paraphrase it. It's something about how, like, if there's creative potential that is blocked inside of you, it's one of the most destructive forces in the world. You know what I mean? It'll just eat away at you and destroy you. So, and we all have different ways of expressing ourselves. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to express yourself on social media. There's obviously various ways to do it. And it's not always with art, too. It's not like people think being creative is with art, it can be in any way. And so, like, that was a big issue for me. And so, I don't have a choice right now in my life. I actually don't have a choice. If as soon as I go off course, I get kind of like the whip gets cracked, in my life. Like either I'll get sick or something will happen, and it's just like, Steve, you're kind of deviating. So I don't ha I have to kind of walk that things really tightly right now. And that's how it is for me. I do think if there's a path you're supposed to be on, a lot of people are going to get kept on it. And, you want it to be more gentle. So you don't want it to be like you're off your path and then something really nasty happens to you, which happened to me numerous times. So I try and listen to the guidance. I try and listen to the messages. I try and walk my path and be grateful for it. It's not always easy because, we all want other things. We're like, oh, things will be better over here, over there, if I had more of this or more of that. But, you know, gratefulness is probably the greatest teacher, to be honest. Yeah.
It's interesting you said about the keeping some of it in, right? It's like that's kind of where a month ago is really when I just yeah, I guess maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, like started ramping up, just doing like some shorter podcasts, doing stuff. I was like, oh wow, like I was actually like buzzing from it. Like a couple of the interviews I've done so far, right? Like after I'm done, I'm like, whoa, like this is cool, right? And it's just like I didn't realize how much I missed because like yeah, how much have I consumed in the last few years of just like not putting any, not sharing any of that, right? And it's like, uh, it's a selfish act, right? Of just like taking it all in. And sure, it's helping me out, but if I also can't help others with it, what's the point, right? Because here's like where we're all one, right? So
Yeah.
we're either helping only heal ourselves, which I think we want to strive to and get to, well, like you said, it's a never ending thing, going to always try and take that further, but only, I'll say, healing one person versus five versus 500, 5 million, whatever these numbers are. It's like, yeah, it just grows exponentially for um, not just a collective, I feel like, on this planet, but just throughout the universe, whatever it is, right? It's like, it's all connected and we want to just strive to make it, I would say, the best place we can, I guess.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I mean, it's like that really is beautiful. And it's like it doesn't always, I think it's like it doesn't always have to be this big outward thing. It's like it could just be simple, you can give just with your prayer and your thoughts and saying blessings for people too. So it's like it manifests differently for everybody. Where I'm at right now, I'm kind of doing both. Like I have a more of like a prayer blessing practice where I'm kind of just thinking about people and offering blessings to everything from people, plants, animals, trees, everything. And so it's just, I try and do that in as many ways as I can. And one day, hopefully, I'll be able to just go live in a little house in the woods and not have to talk to anybody. But right now, that's not my path. So
It's amazing how many people I hear say that, right? And at the same time, I'm not. I mean, I think it's because I used to feel that same way. Now, I don't want to be in a house in the woods and not talk to anybody, right? It's I still want that house in the woods, but I think it's like still I want that connection. Like that's been my struggle of like feelings of even just loneliness, where it's like, and I think that was where I wasn't making those same connections, or making that same sharing. And it's weird because I work with people all day long. I mean, tomorrow I'm probably going to work with 25, 30 people, right? Like, and yet it still is like, that's not it. Like sometimes that's not it, right? Whereas there are other ways to share and connect that I'll say go beyond that physical. So it's like sometimes, yes, I want that in person, but then sometimes kind of where you're saying is like, yeah, I want that sitting outside in nature and just connecting with whatever it is. And
yeah,
I think I
yeah.
need that like in everything in between too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I guess if I had a house in the woods, I'd want to be about 20 minutes from a nice coffee shop or a nice little town I could go into, and then I could retreat back to my house in the woods.
So have you explored archetypes for yourself then?
Not super deeply. I know some of the ones that are kind of, the hermit archetype is, is pretty strong. I actually had somebody do a bunch of human design and gene key stuff on me recently too. And a lot of these things that I kind of uncovered about myself, self have kind of like just showed up in those too. So it's interesting how there's a lot of crossover in kind of those things too. Those, I guess you can call them constitutional. It's whatever, I don't know. In your makeup in some ways.
Right.
I don't
Like
like to,
you really
you know,
gonna change that.
I've always resisted like kind of like I don't want to be pigeonholed as this or that, like, but there's definitely something to that stuff, whether it's astrology or this other stuff, you know?
And I think kind of what we said before, right? It's most likely it's just a combination of all of it, right? And yes, pigeonholed, while it can seem again just like very limiting, it's like that's how it is. Like it's also not going to help you to fight it either.
It's not going to help you to fight it. Yeah.
uh, One of the other things, okay, so I want to get into maybe even like shamanism a little bit. You even use the word in one of the videos I saw, shamanize or shamanizing.
It's my
Like,
favorite word. Yeah.
okay, run with that. Let's start with that word. Like, how did you take shaman into shamanize or shamanizing?
I didn't come up with the term. You know, I've studied a lot, you know, the shamanic archetype has always been kind of strong within me. Um, so it's always attracted me, those types of practices, the very archaic type practices. Um, and so I've kind of researched it a bit. You know, obviously Michael Harner is one of the big names there. And the other guy that's usually often referred to these are the people who studied shamanism throughout time, you know, across the world. I don't know if I'm saying his name properly, but he was a professor of religious studies at the University of Chicago. I think his name was Mircea Eliade or Iliade.
Okay.
So he's written more on shamanism probably than anybody. Massive, massive books.
I was gonna say I do have one of his books now that you said that. Yeah, because I mean I've read all Michael Harn's work and taken some coursework uh, through his institution, but now
Yeah.
that you're saying that, I can picture the book I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be called like now I forget the name of it. I can probably run and grab it. But so in studying this, Michael Harner might have, I forget which one of them came up with the term. They might both mention it, but they talk about the idea of shamanizing. And so shamanism has become very mainstream, probably to the point that it's, you know, really like diluted its power in some ways. And people are walking around calling themselves a shaman or doing plant ceremonies and all this stuff, whatever. It's kind of a mess, actually, I think. But so what are the things that people would associate with a shaman? You know, you might maybe you have the idea of power animals, power items, drumming, rattling, chanting. I'm not going to include like ayahuasca and that stuff because I don't think it's not the norm in the world too if you study it. It's just one piece of it. And so let's say that you were to incorporate all these things into your life, having power items, having learning how to establish a connection with a power animal or a spirit who wants to help you, drumming, rattling, singing, dancing, and moving your body, just letting it happen every day. Those things would all be what I would call shamanizing. And shamanizing doesn't mean you start dressing differently or acting differently. It really means that the other thing that I would add in there as well is ritual and ceremony and prayer. And so I think that people are aware of all these things, especially in the new age space and, you know, with what people share on social media, but I don't think they understand the power of it. I don't think they understand that how to actually implement this in their life. You know, like I talk to so many people who have, and I would include having an altar in this too. Like maybe you have power items on an altar. So like I ask so many of my clients, like, do you have an altar? And they're like, well, yeah, I had an area that I set up with a few things. And then I'm like, so do you spend any time there ever? And they're like, no, I can't remember the last time I, you know, connected with it. And I'm like, okay, that's a problem. So for me, I have a section in my house that, you know, I wish it was bigger, but, you know, my wife doesn't allow that. But it's a small section where I have some really sacred items. And I'm there multiple times a day connecting with it. That for what that means for me is different than what it might mean for you. It could just mean sitting there. It could mean reciting prayers, often prayers that you come up with. And so, or I ask people, do you carry anything on you that's special that you consider a power item? And people might say, oh, well, I have a necklace that I wear sometimes, or I have a crystal. And I'm like, well, I have something that I keep in my pocket 24/7. The only time it's not on me is when I'm taking a bath or a shower. And I connect with it every day. at different times of day, I'll put my hand in my pocket. So it's like I take all that stuff really seriously. So I'm always shamanizing, whether it looks like I am or I'm not. I'm doing these things. I have a connection with various power animals. I learned how to do it with Michael Harner, um, which and his initial workshop is phenomenal. Every human should take it.
And
Um,
it's so simple. It's
so
so
simple.
simple.
So simple. And that would be another part of shamanizing, learning how to do a basic journey. When I first learned about journeying, it was probably before I met you, and I didn't know how to do it properly. And I was actually kind of doing it in an unsafe way, maybe bringing things back that I shouldn't have been. And so it actually deterred me from actually exploring that route for a while because I was so scared of it. And so eventually I learned how to do it safely. And now I feel really confident in working with these things. And so I think everybody needs to learn how to shamanize. It means different things for different people. I think um, it's just such a powerful practice. But, I wrote an article on it recently. Well, not on shamanizing, but more specifically on a Substack on how to connect with their spirit animal and why it's kind of hard for people sometimes. And a big part of it is people don't want to acknowledge this stuff, really, to be honest with you. Like, you'd be amazed that there are people who are into Qigong and spiritual things, but then you talk about spirit animals and they kind of like run away. And
Really?
it's like, guys, this stuff is older than all this other stuff. I mean, it's like the dawn since man has been on this planet, whenever that is. I don't really even know how long. People have been doing these practices. The things they see in caves that are hundreds of thousand years old. Like they've been doing this shit. You know what I mean? And it's like I want to connect with these healing arts that are, go back that long ago, because that's what resonates with me. But I also incorporate other things as well, you know what I mean? And Qigong actually is a shamanic practice. It probably was first established as a shamanic practice for healing, and it was a meditative dance that people were doing. Who knows how old Qigong is, by the way? Like, it's old. It's real old. But that was a long wind shamanizing. I get excited about
Well,
shamanizing.
no, no, no. So Stephen, what is the part that you're upset about though too? Like how has it been bastardized, I guess, as well as um without taking into account some of these simple principles?
It's just become more mainstream and everybody's calling them. I mean, I think the part of it that's gotten, and I think people realize this has gotten sloppy is that everybody wants to be a plant medicine facilitator. Everybody wants to do ayahuasca and get that kind of experience when that's totally unnecessary. I think only a small component of the peoples that practice shamanism in the world utilize that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Most people just get to that state with drumming and singing and rattles. So, and I think it's dangerous. I think people shouldn't mess around with that stuff, quite frankly, unless you really trust and know the person that you're doing it with. It also doesn't fit into everyday life, really. You know what I mean? It's like, even though people have brought like doing these ceremonies here, like you can't function as a regular human if you're kind of like, even if you're doing that for like a weekend. I don't know how you're going to integrate back into like being if you're a parent, you're doing that on the weekend, then Monday, are you going to be able to be a parent again and snap back into like reality? I don't really know. I haven't done it and I don't think you need to do it. And it seems for me, all this healing work that I've done, all the routes that I've gone down, the extreme things I think are you often get into trouble with most of the time, whether it's an extreme diet, an extreme spiritual practice, an extreme shamanic practice, whatever it is, like it's maybe you get something out of it, but people get stuck and it can often cause issues. I like to take a more moderate approach and incorporate lots of ancient practices in a more subtle way that can kind of just improve a regular lifestyle for a regular person, whatever a regular person is. Yeah, I don't know.
And so I'm gonna make the comment, right? Like
Yeah,
I do have a shaman that I've worked with on an occasion around that lives around here, right?
yeah.
And he's spent month after month down in Peru working with his maestro, right? Like, so he's putting the time and effort, right? And it's like, I will say though, like, um, it's not easy to jump back into things the next day, the next 2 days, right? Even like when I use mushrooms or San Pedro, it's like those to me are much easier to integrate, and I'll just use it more as like really like a love opening practice, is what I can use it as. But that doesn't take into account kind of some of the other things you talk about. It's like, well, I'm still doing Tai Chi twice a day, every day. I'm still meditating 45 minutes a day, twice a day. Like you said, like hey, I'll take even 5 seconds, just close my eyes, right? Like when I'm working with patients, like I'm just connecting with God, with love, with the universe, with whatever it is, right? And it's like I'm doing that multiple times throughout the day. So what are the more important things? Like, no, the more important things aren't the ceremony that I go do every once in a while, right? It's like more important stuff is that everyday stuff. And it's like if you can't cultivate and practice that, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to integrate. I mean, drinking from a fire hose from the universe, like it doesn't work that way, right? Like you need to be ready for that because it's coming. It's coming. And
I know.
no matter what, like you can't stop it at that point. The more you try and stop it, that hose, like now there's two fire hoses, right? Like, and it's just like, it's just more and more comes your way. So it's like, I absolutely agree with you from the standpoint of, uh, do I think it can be used effectively? Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Provided all the things we've been just talking about for the last 50 minutes, like are taken into account and start to be made into an everyday practice.
Yeah, I think that the guy that you're, the shaman you've worked with sounds like he's doing it the right way. You sound like, you're a very, you know, you're a special guy, Nick, but like you seem like you can do this kind of work, right? It's part of your path. I think
Oh, but now let me also say this.
yeah,
I'm scared every time. Like
yeah.
there is a fear going into it, right? And it's like, well, what am I afraid of? I don't really know. Like there's nothing I should really be afraid of either. But at the same time, I know something's coming. Uh
No.
Not just like, all right, let's go do this. Like it's not that easy.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's another tool. And whether you need that tool, nobody can really help you decide that. But it's not a tool that's going to be a shortcut, which I think a lot of people think. I think people want shortcuts in this path, and I don't think there are any shortcuts. I mean, you need just more tools to help you, whatever the path you're taking, to take that path. And also tools to not veer off your path too long. You want to stay on your path. And there's various things that can take you off your path. So, tools to help you with whatever the path is, and tools to help you recognize when you're off path and how to get back on path. To me, that's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, use your everyday hammer, not the sledgehammer. Like that's it's like with the tool analogy. It's like,
Right.
what's the one you're going to use more often, right?
And
Uh,
some people might, yeah, some people might need that one. But yeah, so shamanizing with those basic methods, I just think everybody should learn to do. And the other problem is that I just think people, they just don't take it seriously enough. I might say, why don't you hit a drum for 15 or 20 minutes a day or shake a rattle? Like I ran a retreat in Italy this summer and I had a really small, amazing group and I got everybody rattles, and we formed a circle and we were rattling and they couldn't believe, obviously you're in circle and there's energies flowing through, but I was like, I want you guys to rattle every day, just giving thanks for, the spirits that want to help you for everything. It's just so powerful, simple practice like that. But not everybody, I mean, the people that come across my path realize it, but for it to go mainstream and to see everybody, doing a rattle or hitting a drum, it just like they might not realize it because they want something that's going to kind of like, they either want something, people want either really, I think a lot of times people want something that's either really fancy and complicated, like a course that's really complicated or like a complicated technique. They don't think the easy stuff is going to like benefit them, but that's usually what you need.
I even laugh like, uh, my kids always want to play with my rattles and drum. Always, 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 right? Like even with you saying it that way, it's like it's just they're naturally drawn towards it, right? Like actually, it's right. I mean, it's right under here, and it's like they're just going to be going for that anytime they can. And it's like because, but I mean, they're going to be wailing away at it, but they just know like it's that frequency, it's that energy that it gives off. Like they intuitively recognize it until somebody tells them they shouldn't over and over and over, right? And then how many decades later it's just lost. And now you have to regain that simple practice of just doing that again.
All kids are shaman, collecting sticks, rocks, like that. My daughter, I mean, it's like it's so important for them to learn all these tools too, because they're so energetically sensitive. Like my daughter has an altar area, and when I do stuff, she kind of does it with me. Or if she's having a hard day, she's like, I need to go to my altar. And she'll just go sit there and figure her shit out. It's freaking incredible. It's like we're giving them, and I didn't really, I mean, I taught her by example, but, or even for kids, just like, I homeschool, so my daughter's with me most of the time, but when she's out in other groups and she comes back, like I could just see the energy, something's up with her energy, right? And so I taught her how to do kind of cord cutting stuff and like simple techniques. And kids love it, because they can visualize, they believe it, take your silver scissors and cut those cords, pull them out, like they come up with their own techniques. So it's so powerful for kids too, all this stuff.
I mean, you taught me that one 10, actually, whenever we were at HLC3, I'll never forget that. Like, I have used and taught that to so many people. Um, it's incredible. Like, anytime that I have students, I'll make sure like I go over that with them because people just don't understand. And it's so easy and so effective. It's just incredible. So, I mean, I cannot thank you enough for just that technique.
I taught you cord cutting?
I thought you did. I very much remember that. Like I've done it for a while. I thought you were the one that talked about it.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, in any event, it's just, yeah, it's so powerful. And the more I get into this stuff, the more I realize people want me to tell them exactly how to do something. Like, tell me exactly how to cord cut. And what I'll do is I'll give them the basics, but then I say, no, you customize this based on what makes sense for you. I remember one time my daughter was acting like really weird. Like she was fine one minute and the next she was acting so weird. She was like laying in bed and I was like, what the hell's going on? And this is before I was like super into the shamanic stuff and had any training. And I just like started like standing over her and like moving my hands. And all of a sudden I like went like this and I felt like I was like had an like a talon or something. And I just went like this over her body and pulled something out. And literally 5 minutes later, she was back to normal. Like, I don't know what the hell I did. I just made that up. I mean, I don't know, something made me do it, but you know what I mean? It's like you just got to make this, you can learn a little technique, learn a little theory, but I really think we all have these abilities possibly from other lives, possibly just using our imagination. Who the hell knows? But like we're all so powerful too. And that's what I try and instill in people that like everybody can do this kind of stuff. There are special people that have special skills, right? But everybody can do stuff to help themselves and help others, really.
I want to go one of your videos, what was it? Your daughter you said your daughter told you you have everything you need when you come into this world.
Yeah.
That is incredible right there. Like that is where you said like all kids are shamans. There is the perfect example of something like that.
It's crazy. And it's like they just know. But you have to get like parenting has taught me so much. I'm sure, how many kids do you have, Nick?
Three.
Two. You have three. Wow. I have a daughter, she's 8, but it's hard though, because like they have an earth walk, right? They have a path and they're gonna have to deal with some things and you have to be there for them, but you also have to know they're going to go through things and you can't like if that's part of their journey, they're going to have to go through it. So it's been kind of hard, I've had to learn to really learn how to um, stand back and kind of be there for different things. And it's probably going to get even worse as she goes out into the world. And so it's like, but if we can give them these tools to navigate their path, their earth walk, I think it's kind of what, part of what being a parent is about.
What are your beliefs? What are your thoughts on the Earth Walk? Is this something that we uh, decide in between lifetimes? Is this something where it's like, uh, I mean, I've seen like where you're here to build karma, to get rid of bad karma, to et cetera, et cetera. Like, what are your thoughts around just like that concept of an Earth Walk?
Yeah, it's a challenging one with all these manifestation people out there thinking that you can like really control every aspect of your reality. I think, you're co-creating in a sense that you can control certain aspects of your reality. However, I do think there's certain things that have to happen in your in your time here on Earth. I think there were lessons that you have to learn. And I think if you don't learn them, you're going to have to learn them at some point. I think there's a karmic component to it as well, for sure. And if things happened in other lives. And really, I guess if things happened in other lives, other incarnations, whether they're past or simultaneous, I don't know, if there's unresolved things, they have to be resolved at some point. So I think oftentimes they come up in this life, when you're going through these dark nights of the soul, or when you're going through these deep things, they come up and maybe they manifest as, maybe you were burned at the stake. You're not going to get burned at the stake in this life, ideally, but something else is going to happen that brings up those energies, and you're going to have to eventually transmute it. So I think that's what's happening in this time period that we are incarnated. I think more and more people came here to really grow in this one and to really deal with their shit, basically. And so it's a pretty powerful time because we have more tools at our fingertips now to deal with things. Back in, our parents' time, hey, would you have an encyclopedia? You can go to a library. They didn't have access to like esoteric teachings. They didn't have access to all this stuff really, to the extent that we
But
do.
did they also choose to be incarnate at a time when that wasn't available, I guess, right?
I guess so, yeah. So I do think that um, I do think this stuff is decided before you come in, parents, your life situation. I don't think that, I do think that certain things have to happen to you in this life if you're going to grow. Like I think the things that have happened along my path had to happen. I think there were times when I could have learned the lesson, but I didn't, and it had to get ramped up in intensity so that I learned it. Because I don't think I have a choice in this life. I think I have to learn the shit that I'm supposed to learn, and it's kind of scary to think about because it means you don't really have control in some way. But at the same time, I don't sit back and think that I have no control over my life. I try and have a vision. I have goals, I have aspirations, but at the same time, I also don't really know what's going to come in my path. Like this whole thing that I'm doing right now wasn't in my path. You know what I mean? Being on social media, share energy work. I mean, I was a nutrition and health coach. Like I never thought I would be doing Qigong and this type of energy work or shamanism. But now that I think about it, it's something that I feel like have done for a long time, even though hasn't been that long in human years. So there's something coming forth from another time period. You know what I mean?
Have you done work on previous lifetimes, like to kind of dive into that for yourself?
I've had some experiences in during sleep, some powerful dreams that I saw things that really clicked. I had actually, strangely, an acupuncture experience. I was working with this girl who did an acupuncture session on me years ago, and I went somewhere else and saw something. Um, I think the heaviest, I think with past lives or simultaneous lives, I don't know what I, really believe about it, depending on how you view time. Um, I've more often, and I really feel things. I feel energies. I'm not really like seeing things like some people or hearing things. I feel things, and it's hard. But there have been times where I'm reading things, let's say about like, and what this is something people can do if they want to kind of get into past life analysis. You just, people might be drawn to a particular period, whether it's like Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Sumerian, Native American times. They're probably drawn to it because you had a life there, right? And so what you can start to do is start to like, scan through dates and people, and you might feel stuff. And if you start to really connect with something, or if you go to a museum, it's actually a really great thing to do too. You go to a museum and start walking around. I was in Italy recently, and I was in this, strangely, the museum that has, I mean, the most Egyptian artifacts are, I think, in a museum in Cairo, Egypt. But the second museum, the museum that has the second most Egyptian artifacts, is in Italy, in northern Italy, in Turin. It's the most amazing museum in the world. Turin is it's outside of Milan, so it's in northwestern Italy. They did the Olympics kind of out of Turin years ago. There's a lot of
Right,
mountains
right.
there. It's where I did my retreats in the Italian Alps. It's kind of right near the French border. But there's a museum there with Egyptian stuff. And like, I don't really connect with Egyptian stuff, but like my daughter has a thing with it. And so it was kind of like I could tell she was feeling all sorts of things. But in any event, so I was getting at what you feel. So like years ago when I first started unraveling some of these things, I've always been into the Native American things, the movies when I was growing up, Dances with Wolves, Last of the Mohegans. These movies, I just couldn't stop watching them. I was just like, there was something about it. Like I felt like I lived that time. Or like later on, the movie The Revenant. The Revenant literally rocked me. And I don't watch TV and movies really, and I haven't in years. But I saw that movie and like I couldn't get up from the chair. You know what I mean? It was like it just felt so real to me. Like I lived experiences like that. So when things hit you like that really viscerally, I think there's something deeper there. And so, but further, like I've read stories about specific time periods, and I live in an area in Western New York where it's like that's who was living here. This was all indigenous peoples living up here, and so like, you're feeling the energy there, but like sometimes reading historical stories and things, like I felt like my insides are getting ripped out. And it's like, what are you feeling? You're feeling these energies from these experiences that your spirit had in this other life. And it's like, it's heavy, heavy stuff often because most of these things that we're feeling, if you look at the history of the world that we know about, messed up shit was happening.
All
Like, are you
the
are you
time.
kidding me? Like, what the stuff what happened in this world is so insane. I mean, maybe you were lucky and you lived there through a 100-year period where things were calm, and there were periods like that. But shit
In
was bad
certain parts of the world, but
in
it
different parts of the world.
wasn't calm everywhere, like at
No,
any time. Yeah.
but shit was messed up, and we lived through crazy shit. Killed lots of people. Were killed. Like, who knows? Betrayed people. It goes so deep. But like. So I started to process some of that stuff. Just I started to feel it. And then what do you do with these feelings? Like that's when Qigong's great because you can really start to just start moving and try and like get this stuff moving. You know what I mean? Or even shamanizing and dancing and drumming, or even just asking your spirits and guides to help you transmute these energies. Um, all those things are needed and helpful when you're dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can think to one recently for myself. I was sitting, like you said, by my altar and I was meditating, and all of a sudden, like I am just like bawling my eyes out, right? And it's like, but it was bawling my eyes out, and then like almost undulating to extreme joy and happiness, right? Just like this back and forth of like, whoa, whoa, like and it wasn't like a here and now thing. It was exactly what you said. This was a like going back. I mean, I have no idea how long, right? But it's like still all of those things just kind of rush through, and it's like they're still all there, and this is part of, I guess, that collective healing process too, right?
I know that's why it's so hard too healing because it's like you have your own individual things from your own, that happen with your own family, your parents. Then you have the ancestral stuff. Then you have the past life stuff. Then you have the collective stuff. And I mean, there's more layers to it than that. Like, if
And
you
that's
get
just collective. Like if we're talking maybe on Earth, that
on
doesn't
Earth,
that doesn't talk about anything else everywhere else.
no. And I mean, then you got the Jungian stuff, which is all the deep archetypal, unconscious stuff, however you want to talk about it. It's like there's so many freaking things going on. So people are like, oh, I want to do inner work. I'm like, all right, well, you sure you want to get into this? I mean, like, because it's like then you're trying to discern what's like what am I feeling? It's like sometimes I try and I get in the rational mind. I want to figure it out. I'm like, pendulum. Like, what is this? Past life, collective, individual, ancestral. Sometimes that awareness is helpful, and the awareness kind of can help bring out about a transmutation. But other times, number one, you're not always going to get an answer to things because it's not always, you're not always going to be entitled to the information for whatever reason. And other times, it's just like it doesn't help to know. Like you just have to I just whatever's happening's happening. Like let it happen. You know what I mean? So it's it's crazy
When you say the word transmutation, what does that mean?
to transmute. So I guess could kind of be linked to kind of like an alchemical process, right? So you have this from an emotional standpoint, you have an emotion that's stuck in your system, right? So I guess in some ways, transmutation means I use transmutation when it's taking an emotion and moving it through the system. But I guess that's not really So I don't want to say the emotion's being converted to something else because I don't think it is, but I think it's being kind of moved out of the system. And that's very healing. Because I don't think, whatever the emotion is, like the emotion in and of itself is not bad, and you don't want to turn the emotion into something else. You just want to accept it and move it through. So I guess it's, alchemy, one thing's turning to another thing. So I think it's more about just processing things and letting them move through you. I think that would be the simplest way to look at it.
Well,
Yeah.
because there are no bad emotions, right?
Yeah.
We see them as I think like good and bad, but it's like they're all just emotions. Like an emotion doesn't care what it is. It's just it is the emotion. Uh, this is
Yeah.
one that's like up until the last probably 2 years, I did not feel emotions. Like I did not know what that meant.
Yeah.
So it's like emotions have been a wild thing for me, both to try to I guess pinpoint what they are sometimes, like because that's super challenging. Like when you don't feel things, like I think I always felt things, but I never like everything was just always positive. It was just always a good thing, always a good thing, always a good thing. Like and then allowing myself to, I'll just say, feel a broader spectrum of emotions. Uh, it's it's a wild thing. Like it's a lot to go through. So that's why I was curious. Like, yeah, how are you using the transmutic? And I like that better than alchemy because right, you don't want to change that emotion. You
Yeah.
want to actually be able to process it properly.
Right. And it's like I actually got very into emotions for a period of time, and it's actually, heal without. Out actually stands for organize, understand, transmute. And so I actually came up with this process when I was first starting to unravel like these things that happened to me when I was like more like in a childhood age. I was like, all right, I have this memory and I know it's a loaded memory, but like I need to find out what emotions are linked to it. Very often I would be able to, I was angry about what happened, but anger is just a surface emotion, right? Usually there's like grief and pain that you need to get to. And so I was like, how do I access this? So I actually came up with this pendulum-based healing technique where I have a basket of emotions, which is 50 emotions. And I consider that these 50 emotions are part of what I refer to as the emotional energy spectrum. They're all emotions that you can experience as a human. And so what I would do with my pendulum, I would do the organized part of out. Organize is I would basically like I had this memory, right? So I would organize my thoughts. I would write down the memory. Understand. I needed to understand the emotions that were linked to this memory. And so with my pendulum, I would douse the 50 emotions and figure out what emotions were linked to this event. So then I had a piece of paper where I had the event, I had the emotions that were linked to it. And what I would do is I would look at these emotions and I would rewrite the story. And it would actually help me put together the story about what happened when I was a child. Once I did that, I would start to either get really anxious, like, anxiety too is emotions starting to come up, but you're blocking them, either anxious, or sometimes I would just start crying. And so this process helped me, and I used it hundreds and hundreds of times myself with all these memories I had to get to the root cause, the root memory that was actually really causing issues for me. And what ultimately started happening too during this process is I started remembering things that happened to me as a child. And also as part of this process, I started seeing patterns, whether it was like all the times I was shamed or the times I was afraid or the times I was feeling guilt. And so I was able to put together this kind of like timeline of sorts of when these things happened to me in my life. And um, it was really powerful. But at the same time, I got to a point where like it stopped working because it was too analytical, it was too mental. And so there were other things that had to happen, other realizations that had to happen, which just had to happen more naturally. You know what I mean? It's like I'm really big into I don't know if you remember the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Narnia books, the Chronicles of Narnia. I think we
No.
read some of these books in school when we were younger, but I don't think kids read them anymore because I think they view them as being like religious, or they probably were actually too helpful for kids, so they stopped reading them. In any event, there's a really powerful story in one of these books about how um, I'll try and tell it quickly. But basically, there's this boy who he was kind of like his name's Eustace, and he was a boy who was kind of like a really like a like he was like kind of a bully. He would make fun of other people. He would like always talk about how he was better than everyone, but he was really just an insecure kid. And so he ended up on this island, and somehow he got turned into a dragon. And getting turned into a dragon wasn't a good thing. He was really weighed down. He didn't want to be a dragon anymore. And so one night he went to sleep and he was transported to this magical well on the top of a mountain. And when he was on top of this mountain, he met this lion who is the lion from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. His name's Aslan. Aslan is kind of like a godlike figure, a magical figure. And so Aslan said to him, "You have to peel off these layers." And so this boy Eustace, who's a dragon now, peeled off one layer of his skin, kind of like a snake. And he felt better when he did that. And Aslan's like, "You got to peel off another layer." And so he peeled off the next layer and he started to feel better, but there was still more there. He peeled off a third layer himself and he was like, "All right, I feel better, but there's still another layer here that I can't get rid of." And so at this point, Aslan the lion was like, "I'm going to have to do the last layer for you." And so Aslan, who's either like God or the divine, had to peel off this last layer for him. And it was really a profound thing. And I cried when I first read it because it showed me how there's only so much you can do yourself with healing, and that some of the stuff is going to have to get done by the divine, by something else, and you don't have control over that. So it's like, yeah, we have to do the work and we're going to peel off various layers. And this wasn't in the layer that Aslan peeled off wasn't the final layer. But what happens is he gets, after this layer is peeled off, he gets tossed into this well and he says, "I feel like a newborn." And he comes out and he comes back to the world as a boy and he's not as bad anymore. And what they say is that the cure has started for him. So this was the kind of the first awakening that put him on his path to healing. And so, yeah, we're all going through that. So I was able to do a lot of the peeling myself with this technique, this pendulum technique, but then a lot of other layers had to get peeled off in other ways, and I didn't have control over them. So I love that story, and the whole series is really powerful.
I mean, I definitely know the books, but I've never read any of them. So now that's very intriguing. Yeah.
They're written by C.S. Lewis. He's probably my favorite author. These books are just so unbelievable. I mean, he was best friends with Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings and all those. They used to hang out in a cafe and talk about ideas together. But his C.S. Lewis's writing style is a little, it's more my style. It's just so powerful. So there's a bunch of books in the series, I think 6 or 7, and they're all amazing. Yeah.
Do you do much fictional reading now?
With my daughter mainly.
Okay.
She's still at the age where, she reads, but she also just likes to read with me. And it's just so magical. We can just lay in bed and read a whole book in a day or two together. You know what I mean? It's like, I really cherish those moments.
So has she read these or started them at all?
We've read all the Narnia books together.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I read them with her. I didn't think I was going to think anything of them. And then numerous sections of these books literally just split me wide open, like just bawling, crying. So there's really powerful messages in those books if you have kind of the eyes to see them. Anybody who's into spiritual work, I think will pick up on it, but they're pretty cool. I think he was a pretty enlightened dude, to be honest with you. I actually learned that C.S. Lewis died the same exact day as Aldous Huxley and JFK Jr. I'm pretty sure they all died on the same exact day. I think that's pretty wild. You can fact check that, but I think I read that somewhere and I was like, that's kind of wild.
Just some pretty big influences upon the world. Yeah.
Right? Right? That's wild. They're like,
All
we're
right.
both.
So now I'm curious. Do you have like any other? So I both love reading fiction and struggle with it all at the same time. I think it's I've still not been able to settle into a regular fiction reading practice because I think of some of what you were saying there too, right? It hits me of the oh, my perception is it's not going to be enough of like the inner work, the healing work, the et cetera, et cetera. But I guess with you saying it that way, right? It's like no, it can be just as deep, if not deeper, told in story as is from any of the greatest writers that are out there on fiction work as well.
Yeah, I actually, I've had probably greater healing reading the C.S. Lewis books and Moby Dick than any of the spiritual books I've read. And I've read tons of spiritual books, probably all the similar ones as you. Because I mean, these people that write, I guess it depends how people, so people have these major insights, and I guess they all, all these people choose to share them differently. I mean, you could look at a painting by somebody and probably see the same message that a spiritual teacher is going to convey. You can listen to a song, you can read a fictional book. So it's like all these people have this, they had the same realizations and they're just sharing them in different ways. It's like I've been split wide open by songs, you know what I mean? Or paintings or, various ways. So yeah, the fictional books can be powerful. Moby Dick is probably one of the greatest spiritual books ever written. I mean, I read that book like 3 times. It's wild. It's about enlightenment. I mean, it's about like he dies at the end, but he doesn't really die. You know what I mean? Like a part of him dies and he comes back, purified. At least that's the messaging I get out of it. I could talk more about that, but
I mean, if you want to, go for it,
no,
because
I
I'm
mean,
intrigued.
not
Yeah.
here,
All
offline.
right, all right.
But
Um, I mean, see, we covered so much. Like, what? I guess I'm going to ask you like a similar thing to that health 10 years out, whatever. Like, what are you still excited about? Like, all right, I mean, we've talked about a ton of stuff here. Like, what is still on your radar on that excitement factor, like for the near-ish future? And it could be kind of health, healing, otherwise. Yeah.
I think that Qigong is going to explode. I think that it's going to be eventually more popular than yoga. I think it's such the growth that I've seen in it since I started posting my videos 2 years ago is profound. I mean, people are recognizing how powerful it is. So I think Qigong is going to explode. I think there's going to be more interest in energetic hygiene. I think people are going to want more tools to just really. I think people are going to stop looking for the biohacking. I think they're going to get back to basics, maybe.
Hacking is still nails on a chalkboard every time I hear it. Like anything hacking, like I cannot stand that term.
I know it's like, I don't know. I have an infrared sauna. That's the main thing. I don't know if that's considered biohacking. I mean, I would use like but whatever. I use this infrared sauna regularly,
I
but
mean,
that's,
you're using heat and light therapy is what you're using.
and so that's kind of, I don't even know what biohacking really means. Like, yeah. But I actually like joke around that like Qigong is like the best biohacking. If you want to talk about biohacking, go do Qigong. It's like the best thing all around. So yeah, I think Qigong is going to be huge. And energetic hygiene, because I think people are getting more sensitive. I think you have so many people that are doing so much and they still don't feel good. And it's like they just need to learn how to assess their energy, rebalance their energy, clear themselves regularly. And there's so many ways to do this, but qigong, cord cutting, connecting with your spirits, prayer work, connecting to God, it's just like all these simple things that people need to come back to. And I think it's pretty amazing. I think people are coming back to them because they want to feel healthy. Uh,
Are those kind of like that? That's almost your definition of the um, oh, what hygiene? Energetic hygiene. Excuse me. Yeah. Like, is that what that means to you?
Yeah, I would say like rebalance, protect, and clear your energy. And I hesitate to use the word protect because like when you get into this stuff, like people are like sensitive people can go into this mode where they're always trying to protect themselves and defend themselves against energies and bubble themselves. And you're really distancing yourself from the world when you do this. And I've been guilty of this too. And like I love playing games with this kind of stuff. Like I'll be standing online in the grocery store and I'll like, somebody's standing next to me and I'm like, something's going on with this person's energy. The minute I try and like block it, it gets worse, right? It's like what you resist persists. But the minute I say, okay, come in here, let me see, let me get curious about you, this energy, it transmutes it. So it's like, it's you can't always be walking around with a shield. Although there is a time for it, I think. That shouldn't be your go-to. Your go-to should be building up your energetic channels, making sure that your meridians are balanced, making sure your chakras are balanced, your energy bodies, making sure that you're a vital, healthy human being, making sure that you're connected with your spirits, you're connected with source or God or whatever. When you're standing like that and that with that going for you, like you're going to just be stronger. Your field's going to be stronger. Things aren't going to get in. It's going to radiate out to other people. So that's kind of the goal for me, not protection. It's like build up all these channels, connect with kind of this other stuff, and you're not going to be as sensitive anymore. You're still a sense, there's sensitive people. They're gonna, it's a gift, right? so you feel things, but it's not going to debilitate you. It's not going to impact you in the same way when you learn how to do all this stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the things. So I got into a lot more craniosacral work over the last year, like started taking a bunch of classes and practicing it then. And actually somebody who I just had on the podcast recently, who is actually one of the instructors for the Upledger Institute, um, uh, Fred Stallman, he was talking about some of this. He's like, and I'll never forget, like him talking about it during class. We talked about it on the interview, but he's like, guys, like you're touching people, like it's what you do, like you, if you just protect yourself, you're never going to actually be able to like facilitate that energy that they're also in need of. He's like, you can't be afraid of it. He goes, don't take it on. There's a difference, right, of versus being able to, like you said, you're going to sense it, you're going to feel it, like you're going to acknowledge it, right? You don't necessarily have to like bring all of that in and just have it crush you, but don't completely wall it off either, because the second you're walling it off, now you can't help facilitate any of that healing process for them either.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I used to get blasted when I was doing nutritional coaching sessions with people, in New York City. I would just be so drained. And, like I didn't know about the idea of opening sacred space and closing sacred space before a session. Like, so like now, like that's like up, if I do a healing session with somebody, you open sacred space, close sacred space, and it could take 2 seconds, right? It doesn't need to be this big, like rattling the four directions, all this stuff. Like, I'm opening sacred space, I'm closing sacred space. And that provides so much protection and strength. And, Michael Harner always talks about, he's like, when you're doing a healing session, you're not, you're basically, your spirits are doing the work. You know what I mean? You're not sending your power to somebody else. You're going to deplete yourself. So like, that's something everybody wants to be a healer, right? And like my hands are putting the energy into you, it's like, it's not coming from me. Maybe it's coming through you.
You're an antenna or like of sorts for it, but you're not, it's not yours that you're giving. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like very rarely do I feel drained after sessions anymore with people. Like occasionally it happens if somebody's in really bad shape and I'm not on my game, but normally it's like, everything's kind of in this container, right? And it's keeping out things that you don't want in there too. That also. So,
Yeah, and that's like you said, I like when I'm doing craniosacral work with people, it's like I feel energized after. Like I'm hoping to help them feel the same. It's like I'm making sure, like, even if you're, because I always see myself as an antenna, like that's just the picture that I use, right?
I love it.
So in doing so, it's like, well, some of it still gets left in me then too, like that energy, that love, that whatever it is that you're trying to help facilitate is like, yeah, you're going to pick up on some of that, and you should.
Well, it's kind of crazy, and you can build that power through like that practice, and then with Qigong, you're building this power. And so like sometimes like if your channels aren't built up to handle it, it can make you have issues. With Qigong, you shake sometimes when you're doing things. But yeah, you got to either ground it or know how to deal with it, which is why Qigong's been so helpful too, because people are downloading these, you're downloading these higher frequency energies as you go through this process, and they'll freaking fry the circuitry if you don't know, like, haven't built everything up to handle it. And I just think that Qigong is one of the best ways to kind of do that. You hear these people that are, whether it's like Kundalini stuff or like they're just crippled in bed, these people. And it's like they should be doing Qigong. They should be doing, certain practices like that to kind of build up the circuitry so they don't overload everything.
Uh, that's that's an interesting point. I'm really glad you said that. Right. So I've studied more of like a self-realization fellowship, like Paramount Yogananda's work, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same kind of concept. It's like they're they, you have to build up. Like if you don't gradually build up, he's like, no, you can't handle the amount of energy that is about to pass through you if it's not built up over. We're talking years, right? Like people don't understand. Like this is not a tomorrow practice. This is a lifetime practice.
I know people don't understand that. It's like when I first got into this stuff, I was like, oh yeah, you can do this stuff pretty quick, but no, I mean, you need to be committed to this work, have these practices, and it takes a long time. And it's never really done, but like I think you do get to a point where you've dealt with a lot of your crap and you can kind of move on with your life a little bit more, you know what I mean? So, but it's not, we came here to do it, but it's not easy, but
Well, Steve, I think this is a great point. Like, uh, if you wouldn't mind kind of just sharing, hey, all your stuff so that people who are interested, like, what do you do? Like, what are your offerings? What do you have out there for everybody to check out?
My main offering at this point is a one-to-one mentorship program where I work with people over the course of like 3 to 6 months. Really, Qigong is kind of the framework, and then I incorporate all sorts of other techniques to kind of help people kind of move through this world with a bit more power, a bit more vitality. And so, it's really designed for people who are energy sensitive, practitioners, people who feel like they're checking all the boxes but are still struggling. Those are the people I'm mainly working with one to one. I also am going to be doing more retreats in the coming year. I don't have any schedule or dates for that yet, but retreats and workshops, hopefully some things happening in the Hudson Valley area, possibly New York City, and probably another retreat in Italy next June, and other projects, but not ready to really launch those yet. So,
There you go. Yeah, and I encourage people like check out some of the videos. To me, like that's a simple place to start, right? Where it's like the qigong practices, like you want to just find some of those simple things, like start it, try it, see how you feel. Like you're gonna notice a difference pretty soon, pretty quickly. And again, it doesn't mean that you're there, right? It's like it's always the practice of continuing, but it's somewhere to start, and that's what it is. Like you got to have that launching point.
yeah, I would say start doing some Qigong. Look at my Instagram. I have a few things on YouTube, but I don't share a lot of fluff. So everything is something you can do to support yourself pretty much. So check it out.
And there you have it, folks. Check it out. Steve, thank you again so much for coming on, sharing. This has been fantastic.
Thanks, Nick. It was really great to connect with you again.